So welcome everyone to our Sunday service, Roots Revival Interfaith. We do this every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, here live on TikTok, YouTube. We do Facebook, Instagram, and then afterward, this does get published on my YouTube channel at Ask IEV, but it also goes up anywhere you can tune into a podcast. So what is that, Paul?
They can get us on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Google, anywhere. Just anywhere you get your podcasts, check us out there.
All right,
We're everywhere.
All right. So I do want to welcome everyone to start posting. This is an interactive service, so you can post your prayer requests, your healing requests, or any questions, comments that you may have about the message that we're giving today. Okay, so we'll be taking those questions throughout, and then halfway through the service, we do pause to reflect on those prayers, to collect any additional prayers. Now, I do want to introduce myself. So I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a Taino Walk. I'm a psychic medium. I'm the pastor of Roots Revival Interfaith. We also have with us this week Paul Casey, Healing Arts. We have Danny Johnson, Reverend Danny Johnson, our numerologist. And
Hi.
we have Reverend Christina Del Rey, our astrologer. I do want to open with a brief prayer before we get into today's message. So if we all just want to close our eyes, get centered. Holy Spirit, we thank you so much for being here with us today. We thank you for being with us every day, even when we're not listening or following instructions or connecting. We appreciate that you always have our back, that you are always reaching out and trying to let us know what it is that we need to do next in our lives, what it is that we need to do for our own healing. And today we ask that you keep open hearts and open minds with everyone tuning in, everyone also who will catch this video later on, to receive the message here today, and not only receive it, but to also apply it afterward. We ask that those who are lost find their way to us. Amen.
Amen.
So today we are starting the first service of a series that will be focused on faith versus, today is faith versus fear and worry. We are going to continue on moving into faith versus emotion, faith versus logic. So we're going to have a continuation here, helping you guys in the day-to-day, things that we all need to reflect on more often. I need as many refreshers on this as I can get. We are going to look at different ways that you can apply these messages of wisdom, these tips, for turning around habits that we all tend to form, where we focus more on our fear, our ego, our worry, all of these things that we've really been trained up to rely on instead of faith, that just don't work, okay? So I want to start straight away with this faith versus fear and worry. One of the things that I see with my students, with my clients, with my own self, family, friends, is that we tend to go with whatever is easiest, whatever is habitual in regards to fear and worry. And I find that very few people challenge when they come from a place of fear and worry. They don't seem to stop often enough and say, you know, this really isn't working for me. I feel like a hamster on a wheel. What has gone wrong here? And even the people who do seem to stop and notice that, they have a tendency to assume that they have disorders. And I can't prescribe or diagnose, but you know, sometimes you need to not necessarily think that there's something wrong with you or turn toward medications. You need to get to the root of the issue. And that is about this imbalance in energy between faith, or we could say love, versus fear or ego. Now, a lot of people tend to just fall into patterns from many generations back. So we just recently did a mini class on here called Breaking Generational Curses, okay? So when I look out at this problem and I see that it seems to be growing, I know that people aren't being mindful. At the root of everything, it's going to break down to that willingness to be mindful, be with oneself, and be honest about where we are. Now, people are handing this down from generation to generation. And I find that so unfortunate, because you can love your children and maybe you love your parents, but they may be giving you some really toxic habits. And you don't want that to go on down the line. So I think we need to be really aware. I think that we are also robbing ourselves of all types of prosperity, not just financial prosperity or success in career, but I look around and I think, how many people could really be on path with their life, living within their life contract, doing what they passionately want to do, are gifted to do? They came to earth to do this thing, but because it doesn't come with a traditional label or doesn't fit into what their training or their education was, they may not get a paycheck in the traditional way from that. They won't step out. How many people are sick? How many people have worried themselves into a place of actual illness, manifested mentally, emotionally, physically? And that didn't have to happen. So I see it increasing, and it's always a concern. But I find that the, most people who recognize it still struggle to apply. Okay, we have an issue up here. Okay, some of these tools. So let's talk about a few different things you can do, and then we're going to open up this discussion, yes, to you guys, but also to my fellow reverends here. So number one, okay, you guys need to stop it in its tracks when it starts. You would find that this is easier if you're prepared ahead of time. So one of the key things that you could do, keep a journal, write down what all your triggers are. If you find that you worry yourself into such a stressful state that you require something like therapy, then go get that extra help. Get a trained professional to help you find what your triggers might be. Sometimes it's very jumbled, but if you know your triggers ahead of time, like for instance, my biggest one is being rushed. I hated it as a kid. I hate it now, and I dread it. I can literally feel it like dread, okay? And dread is always a big warning that you're about to go in the wrong direction. We don't ever want to live with dread and just swallow it. It's knowing that I'm going to be short on time the next day that will start to trigger my fear, my worry, my bad attitude. So I know how to fix that. I'm going to have to be diligent about giving myself extra time, picking out maybe like my outfit the day ahead, or making sure there's clean laundry, okay, whatever it is. There's gas in the car. How many people get stuck without gas? And then you're just an absolute train wreck because now you're going to be even later to that thing. So we need to stop it by knowing our triggers. We also need to have more self-awareness, mindfulness. We need to be more rooted and grounded in the present moment. You need to be comfortable, some of you, in the discomfort. Acknowledge where you are. That's okay. But the more centered you are, the less reactionary you will be. So it's getting control. We also know, and we'll be talking about this more in the series when we talk about faith versus emotion. But we know from research that for those of us who struggle with anxiety and depression, it's effective to distract yourself. Okay? So stop that worry and fear in its tracks with a tool that works well for you. And for some of you, that is distraction. Move on to something else. Don't sit in it. Don't stew in it. Okay, so we need to replace it. Now, if we can stop it and we can replace it, we have to look at effective options for replacing it. We talked a little bit about distraction, but I find that this is where the biggest issue comes in. Now, my suggestion to everyone at all times is always to stop and take a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, to quietly go inward and to speak to your ancestors, to ask for a word from God, your angels, your guides, to allow them to show you what you can do about it, or to give you details on what the healing message is for your situation. Sometimes that's just about helping you to figure out what is going on. Sometimes I just don't even know what's going on. I just know that my energy is haywire, something is off, and I feel like I'm worrying or I'm stressed for no reason. You stop and you go in, and they will help you to see what is really at the root of this. I would always suggest, and I also live by these, check your numerology, okay? Someone like Reverend Danny, who works with numbers professionally all the time, will know what is happening at different phases in your life, or is able to say, well, these numbers are following you. These are the messages here. Work with your astrology. Okay, Reverend Christina Del Rey, an astrologer, knows all about this. If we are more in tune with our contract, with our astrological chart, you can measure all of this out. But also, as the planets move and shift, if we don't know what's happening up there and how everyone's energy is affected, you're kind of at the mercy of the system. So there's so much more that we could tap into. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, you need to slow down. So our system here, especially in America, is so fast-paced that we tend to just react and go, 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 go. There is no slowing down and processing of where we are. It's almost like we think it's sinful in some way. You got to be busy, busy, busy. What have you been up to? Oh, I've just been so busy. And we have to remember that being busy doesn't necessarily equate to being fruitful in any way. So we need to slow down. Again, if you stay rooted and grounded and centered, you will be less reactionary to things. I love that saying, not everyone or everything requires your response. How about not reacting at all? How about waiting, okay, until you feel that you are within the divine timing of the universe? I see so many people miss out on different prosperity points in their life or relationships that could have been really amazing because the right action at the wrong time doesn't equate to any real value. You have to know when to make a move, okay? We have a free mini class on this called Divine Timing, okay, up on YouTube that you may want to check out. But slow down to make sure that you're working within the right system. Again, the numbers and the planets can help you with this also. Number three, stop undermining the significance of your worry. So many of my clients say to me, yeah, but my mother was a worrier and my grandmother was a worrier and I come from a long line of worriers. Well, there's that generational curse I was talking about earlier. You have to stop poo-pooing it, blowing it off as though it's not a big deal. This has the potential to make you physically sick, right? Strip you of all of your energy and definitely wreak havoc on your emotional and mental state. You're essentially giving your power up to everything and everyone around you instead of being in ownership of that by saying, oh, well, this is how it is. If someone puts a chocolate cake in front of me, I know, okay, that this is going to be a problem, that if it's left there, especially if there's a carton of milk next to it, I'm probably going to eat the whole thing. I know this. So I have to say, you know what? I'm not going to let that stress me out. I'm not going to let the cake own me. I am going to take 1 to 2 pieces. I will literally take a situation like that cake and throw it in the trash. just to make sure, you have to value yourself above habits, okay? Number 4, stop running away from it. So one of the things that happens when we start to feel worry or fear is that we panic. We get anxious, we clam up, we shift from the right side, the intuitive, creative, flowing, healing side of our brain, to the left side, the logical, Miss and Mr. Fix-It side, and we're going to fix this thing. So we either tend to overthink it, again, which we'll get to later in the series, or we run like heck from it. So we turn toward avoidance tendencies, escapist tendencies. If you have a tendency to drink a lot and you notice that it's not feeling so good afterward or even during, you are probably using it as an escapism tool. You need to kiss the snake. You need to kiss the dragon. You need to look the fear, the worry in its eyes. And you need to say, I am going to stop this where it is and figure out what the nature of it is so that I know my power in it. You have to be confident in yourself that you can do that. And if you don't have any faith in a higher power or the universe around you, or that there's a bigger support system, that can be really tricky to do. So you need to do the other steps we talked about before this. Now, for many of you, you also have trouble with this at night. So for those of you who don't sleep well, or you have chronic nightmares, maybe, insomnia or insomnia-like symptoms, I can't prescribe or diagnose. It may not even be insomnia. You may be okay to sleep, just at different times. And that's because the stress level can go down. You need to figure out what is going on with your sleep schedule, the problems and interruptions in regards to your fear and your worry, because we have to understand that anything that does not get resolved during the day when you're awake is going to surface at night. Use lucid dreaming techniques where you're in charge, you're in control. Okay, we have a great class on the website called Dreams. Paul, can you put that in the comments for them?
Yeah.
Dreams class will teach you how to use lucid techniques so that ability to confront that fear and look it in the eyes is there at all times. No nightmare can boss you around. No monster, crazy man chasing you down in your dreams is going to be able to get away with it. You're going to have to stop and confront, and that's where your power is. Okay, so these are just a few of the ways that you can apply little techniques throughout the day, mostly based on awareness and replacement. I do want to open this up to the other reverends here to talk about what tools and techniques do you use, or what has Spirit shown you over the years?
Go ahead, Danny. Okay, so one of the things with regard to manifestation, it's interesting because when we are in alignment, we're listening.
Danny's echoing, just so you know.
Okay, we'll turn this down.
Okay, is that better?
Is that better? No? Get it back down lower. Okay, you want to start over and we'll see if that works.
Sure. So with regard to manifestation, sometimes, especially when we're in alignment and we're listening, even before when we first started our conversation, in my mind, I was thinking to myself, Christina and Ivy look so beautiful, but it wouldn't come out of my mouth because I'm listening and they're kind of like preparing for this upcoming session for our class right now. Well, with regard to manifestation, one of the things that, two things about manifestation, especially with regard to faith versus fear. Faith, manifestation, it goes hand in hand with faith. And because the thing is, manifestation takes time. It takes trust. It takes time. And it takes intentional effort. It takes intention from us, like our actual intention. So the thing is, if over a period of time we ask for, we are shown by the ancestors, by spirit, what to do. We are led in the path as to what to do. But then when we get close, or like the emotion starts to take over, as you were describing just now in terms of feelings and emotions, when emotions start to take over, that is when we can literally negate the work that we have done and the spirit has done with us. Because the worry and the fear, it literally can't, it feels like the universe and the ancestors, they read it as, oh, well, maybe she doesn't want it. Okay. So it's kind of like, it feels like spirit does like this. It's like, okay, you want it, I'm going to give it. Oh, you don't? Okay, let me pull back. And it's kind of like, it feels like they get dizzy. It's just, well, make up your mind. So that's something, it feels like that fear can really work against us in that way. And one of the things that I love about our mediumship training is how you describe that literally faith versus fear and worry, and how fear is ego and worry is ego, and how spirit can't recognize ego. They don't understand what it is. It kind of like early when thinking and preparing for today, it was like the movie The Little Mermaid, when it's like the little crustaceans in the sea, I think like they found a fork and they were just like, oh, it's a dingle hopper. Like they don't know what it is. Like, what is it? They literally cannot understand what worry and ego is. So it's like we're on the same page, we're connecting, and then we start speaking different languages, and then they're just like, well, she'll come back when she's ready. But they can't. They literally can't do anything with us and for us when we are when we're connected to fear in that way. And
it literally is the law of the universe. It's one of the laws that I think aren't spoken about enough. But we see this in so many religions too, right? That you shouldn't ever pray and then go worry, because you basically negated your prayer. You basically said, I have no trust in God. I have no faith. I'm still going to go back and figure this out. I'm going to worry about it. And that's what worry is. A lot of people say, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. But what is worry? It is you trying to fix it on your own. It is you thinking that you're actually going to come up with a solution. And that leads back to ego.
yes.
But like, you said, Danny, which is absolutely fear. And yes, because spirit cannot step in due to the law of the light, they aren't allowed to enable you in that way. They have to just sort of stand by and wait. And I think that's where so many people feel that like their guides have abandoned them, or their guides don't listen, and they always want to point the finger that they're not supported enough by spirit, but it's really this.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they, like you said, they can't do anything when we get into that mode. And, okay, forgive me. So a thought came, but spirit will pop it back in when.
Yeah, it'll circle back around. I just wanted to play off of what you just said too, that manifestation takes time. And when we have things interjecting, like maybe you have unforgiveness or bitterness in your heart, or, you're not letting go of something. Well, that qualifies as fear. That qualifies as ego. That qualifies as that sort of toxic energy that eats up your manifestation, your prayer being answered. And so we do need to clear things like that out and be serious. We just did a class called, Paul, you could put that in the comments there for them, relationships, boundaries, and cord cutting, where we did forgiveness exercises. And it's so important that if you're going to have enough patience and endurance to wait for your manifestation, you do everything on your behalf that you can to keep that energy wide open.
Yes. It came back.
It's back.
It's back. It's when you were describing how us helping, we in that ego, kind of like the flip side of that ego, of like in terms of fear, it's like I'm gonna help spirit, I'm gonna help the ancestors, and it's just like with the infinite amount of time that they have reincarnated us, like with our drop in the bucket worth of time on Earth, with like we know three things, they know everything, we know three things. Let me help. And they're just like, please, like don't stir the pot. We don't need your recipe. We're good. You know?
So true. Christina, what were you going to say?
I think it kind of comes down to your thoughts. I think I'm echoing. I'm sorry. Just a little bit.
She echoing?
Yeah, I think I am. So anyway, Mercury is in retrograde, and I mean, Ivy's never conscious of what we don't speak for like a day, and then like she has this idea for a service, and then it's exactly what I've been working on. So it just kind of all comes together like it did last week with Danny and I. And really, I think, Mercury just went retrograde, and this is the perfect time to rethink your habits, because Mercury in the chart rules the 6th house and the 3rd house. The 3rd house is your thoughts, and the 6th house is your habits. Okay, your day-to-day habits, and your day-to-day habits make you who you are. That that cup of coffee you get in the morning, that what your first thought is in the morning, every little ritual that you really don't think too much about because you're on autopilot makes or breaks your day, which makes or breaks your life. So if you think about it, you have to really strengthen the mind in order to be strong mentally. Like, what do you do when you want to get the body strong? You exercise, right? So what happens, the body gets uncomfortable, right? It's strenuous, it doesn't feel good, and you have to do that to get the results that you want. And you develop this strength over time, and then the results are, I feel healthier, I look better, but we don't do that with our mind. You know what I mean? We because we can see the body, we can't see the mind. So we tend to just, think that, well, there's nothing I can do. But what happens if you sit on the couch and you eat bonbons instead of exercising? You're gonna get unhealthy, right? You're gonna disease is gonna set in, right? And you're not. So that's what's happening with the mind as well. So you were talking about like ADD, anxiety, and all these disorders, and addictions. You can have mental addiction too, where you can't stop thinking. And people with heavy air energy often they cycle thoughts, and that becomes fear inducing because it's an addiction. So if you can overdo anything, you can overdo the mind. So that really means that, that can get in the way of manifesting, like Danny was saying. And if you have too many thoughts, you're not putting out into the universe a clear message. And people with a lot of Cancerian energy, like myself, struggle with fear. It's a very big deal. So what I've noticed, especially in the past few months, is that, okay, I'm fearful. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Well, the universe pulls the rug out from underneath you and says, oh, yes, you are. So you think you have a choice, but you don't. And, it's like you have to really go back to the mindfulness that Ivy was talking about, the meditation, sitting, and I've been working on this all weekend before Ivy said anything about anything. And I was sitting, and, I know Crystal watches us a lot, my friend Crystal, and she always says that she has a hard time meditating. So I was sitting there and I was thinking about her today, and I was like, you kind of have to go in and like almost like within your body and feel that your life force is different than your body. You have to separate the two, because you're a spiritual being in a shell, and you have to feel that. And then once you feel that connection of your spirit to the big spirit, to whatever you believe in, then you're able to be less fearful, because everything else, it's just like you're just observing it. Like your faith is stronger because you're connecting. So I don't know. That was what I was working on this weekend, and it really honestly made me feel so much better about my own situation, that everything was going to be okay, that things are going to be fine. I have faith. You might look at circumstances around you and they might be fearful, but you have, like, in order to have that faith, you have to connect.
Yes. I think it's funny that we're talking about connecting by disconnecting.
Yes.
And that is exactly what it is.
Well, and this is another thing too, and you brought this up. You almost have to transcend thoughts. You have to, it's like you're stopping thinking, but it's not like it's not like an escapism where you go and drink a bunch of alcohol or do a bunch of drugs so you can stop drinking. It's almost like you're transcending it. You're going above thinking, because thinking is just an instrument. The mind is an instrument and you're supposed to use it to help you. But if we overdo it, we have to stop it. And then we have to just connect. So it's something
that fits in beautifully too, with this idea that we are not our experiences. We're not
right,
our
ego. When we start to identify,
we're not how much money we have in the bank account. Yeah. None of this is real.
Yeah.
None of this is it. We pull back and we observe. So it's almost like we're playing out this storyline. This is our story. This is what we came here to do with this story. And every opportunity that creates stress is one of the lessons that builds upon the next chapter in that story. There's a purpose to all of it, but until you can sort of become an observer. And so a lot of people talk about pulling back and sort of watching your life from the sidelines, especially in an opportunity of stress, or if people are fighting, or if it's a trigger situation. That's a great opportunity for growth. But I like what you said too, Christina, about going above it. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things Spirit had shown me when my journey became a journey that wasn't so personal anymore, I was supposed to be working with the public and healing others. My first big call to action was to become the eagle and to fly above. And the eagle represents forgiveness as well. Right? So I had to forgive anyone and anything on a regular basis, every day, anything that offended me, anyone from my past who had hurt me, I had to forgive. That would allow me to go up above, and from above, you watch your life. You watch your interactions with everyone. You watch your struggles, but you don't allow yourself to become that thing, those experiences. And it really did help with what you're talking about here for maintaining a healthy thought pattern. Then there was a flow instead of a hamster on a wheel, cyclical, pattern. What were you going to say about that?
Well, with when you guys were talking about, the mind like going out, it's like outward, and everyone says like worry in reality and fear and things like that is like outward, because you're predicting and you're thinking about what's going to happen, and you're like, okay, you're more worried about did someone say circumstances, and you're not your circumstances, you're not this. And it's like, you're kind of projecting everything out there, where I found personally, like to get over fear and to have faith is to have faith. You got to have faith in yourself first. So it's this confidence that you build by, instead of saying, well, this could happen, you just say, all right, well, I'm going to go in. I know I can do this and I'm going to make this happen. So you just, instead of saying this could, you're going to make, and, at that point you can kind of just, as we talk about, when we give readings and healings and stuff, it's that you can't start on anything until you take care of yourself, right? And you have to have this confidence, and you have to build off of that before, going out and just letting circumstances happen. A lot of people feel that things are just going to happen, and they sometimes attribute faith to just letting things, like that they're going to happen. But it only starts once you start having faith in yourself and move forward. Then you can have faith and everything else, because you trust in your sphere, yourself, and it's all part of the equation. And I like to think, this one just kind of popped in my head, was that if you look at like the Fool card, the tarot card here, that's all about stepping out in faith. But he's got his stuff, he's got his dog, he prepared, he knows he's ready. It's not just blind and foolish, he's all set and knows that he has what he needs, and then does it. So it's like, take care of yourself, and when you're confident, you have what you need, then you can go forth. So it's like, start inward and know that you have the ability and the power within you, and then you can, you know, just embrace everything else, because you're yourself. You're part of the universe. You know.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, with fear, people are afraid of like losing their security, and security is really an illusion because it can be taken at any time. So you're so fearful of losing it that you end up losing it anyway, and then you have nothing but faith left. So, you know, the universe is going to switch it around for you. You think you're secure, but you're not.
It's all a big illusion anyways, folks. May as well get in on the real game. I love that. I do want to stop and invite everyone at this time, if you haven't not already done so, to post your questions, your comments for us, but also your prayer requests at this time. So anything that you're worried about, anything you're trying to manifest, anyone you want to pray blessings or healings over, for you or your community, feel free to start putting those down now. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, we do appreciate donations back to Roots Revival Interfaith. We have many big plans coming up, the opening of a church here, hopefully next month. Just waiting on a little bit of paperwork to go through, and so donations are always appreciated. Okay, so we're going to let that happen, and I'm sure we have some questions or comments coming in here, right?
Yeah, we have this. I like this one from Jill, just sent in that when I started thinking of fear in relation to trust, a lot changed. One of my guides said, "Do you trust spirit?"
Wonderful. And I just wanted to say something off of that, and sort of off of what Paul was saying too, that sometimes you need to realize that the reason you aren't willing to trust the universe or the concept of God or your ancestors, your guides, sometimes the reason you don't want to believe that there's anything more to any of this is because you don't have confidence in yourself. You have to have that faith in yourself. It starts there, to say, I can step out and try something new. I believe that I can protect myself. I have discernment, and that I can grow and expand and am loved and am worthy of help that is available to me, if there is such a thing. And there most certainly is. I love that, Jill. That's a testing kind of question. Do we have more coming in here?
No, I think we're good right now.
Okay, so we're going to let people post their prayer requests and their healing requests. I think that this is so important, too, while we're waiting on those to come in here, that we realize that this ultimately is about courage, and that courage is not the absence of fear, right? Courage is just moving forward through that fear. And we have been raised to believe, and I'm sure the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, I'm sure it was an amazing time. That's awesome. But this concept that was so built up during that time has not helped us, that if you feel it, it is good. And if you feel bad about it, it is bad. And like these ideas that are a little bit more modern that I hear thrown around a lot, especially in the New Age communities, of like, you know, just sort of like follow what's easy or follow the bliss. A lot of things are hard work. A lot of things in life that you are supposed to engage in or confront are going to test you beyond, far beyond your comfort zone. And that is not a call to fold. You know, so we have to be courageous in finding what is on the other side of this fear and worry. And I think that when we don't do that, we just forfeit all our blessings.
I think that right now, too, with Mercury being in retrograde, it's a great time to rethink our thoughts, our daily thoughts. You know, this is, how are we thinking and how are we manifesting in our lives? And if you find that you are thinking negatively more than positively, that's when it's time to retrain the brain, because you can retrain your brain with positivity. And, you know, fear it's a really hard thing because it creeps in, you know, and it's very difficult to discern sometimes intuition and fear. But if you are that's where it comes from, the mindfulness and the meditation. Even if you're only taking 3 minutes, to just sit, that's when you're going to start to be able to tell intuition from fear.
And last week, Reverend Christina, really kind of this weekend, last week, showing the synchronicities, especially around the full moon. So when thinking about when Christina spoke about like the full moon was last Thursday, I kind of took a little time and calculated the numeric energy that was with us that day. And it was 7. And 7 one of the actual numbers represent. It's your life path number?
Life path number, yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. So it's representing spirituality, introspection, doing that inner work, needing isolation, and which is so interesting because when it comes to like fear versus faith, sometimes what I realized is that sometimes it is my own fear that is triggered. It's some of my own triggers that are kind of like plucked when my fear is when I feel that I'm in a space that is more fearful than filled with faith. And one of the things that I started doing actually, which was like almost kind of like a precursor and preparatory for me even training with Ivy in mediumship, there's this exercise, it's called the mirror exercise, and it's been kind of like adapted throughout the years by different spiritual folks who teach in spirituality, but it's just like that mirror exercise where you, for everything that I might feel about myself, it kind of like, for everything, it's okay, this person makes me feel like I can't accomplish this goal. And then the second step is switching the pronouns and saying, I make myself feel like I can't accomplish this goal. And then listing out all of the ways that I convince myself that I can't do it. And so by doing that, it not only helps me to take accountability and responsibility for the triggers and for the experiences that have led me to hold on to this thing, but it then helps me to relax a bit in it so that it doesn't feel like a guitar string being plucked, and which is kind of like at the root of it, shadow work, and I'm really excited because I know Ivy has an upcoming mini class on shadow work, which I'm so excited about. I'm like going to be glued to either my phone or my laptop, one of the two. So I'm just...
We're actually going to do a little bit of a series on that because I'm going to do shadow work. It's called like, what is it and how do you do it? And is that this week?
That is on the 9th.
The 9th. Okay, so that'll be on YouTube at Ask Ivy. And then Christina and I are going to do a follow-up to that looking at astrological movements and what type of shadow work. So Danny... maybe this may even be a great opportunity to do like a part 3 based on the numerology or something. So I think it's interesting that we're all hearing so much on that right now. I love that you brought up that accountability. That's one thing we didn't talk about today. How many of us are, blaming outside circumstances or people? We talked a little bit earlier about saying like, oh, well, I come from a long line of warriors. So that's sort of part of it, but it's more common than that we say, yeah, but I have bad luck or my circumstances never work out or something happens and you're like, oh, of course that would happen to me, It's that ability to take it and own it and say, no, I am deciding not to push any harder because of this block or obstacle that was in my way. I allowed for somebody to make me feel as though I couldn't do it. I allowed for. And we have so many opportunities to do this, and we often have so many, especially if it's patterned, like red flags that pop up, to indicate to us intuitively beforehand that we should be keeping an eye on a situation or that it's a test. We get tested. Every time we're about to move up to a new level in the universe, we get tested. And so if we can prepare for these things, we could take ownership of it and stop blaming it on others or circumstances, whatever, how we felt. I love that.
I wanted to say too, you had talked about how, people say I'm from a long line of warriors.
Mm.
That is family karma. And it is your duty to break that cycle. So, you can stop that family karma because it's not, your family doesn't just give you bad karma. They give you good karma too. They give you wisdom and things. But if that's something that your grandmother couldn't conquer because she didn't have the tools to do it, you do. So it's your responsibility, accountability to break that family karma for your children or, your nieces and nephews but it's your responsibility to break that.
And because it is family karma, we often see, whether it's past life or in this bloodline or even, your ancestors, you didn't necessarily know them all, or you may have only known them briefly, but we do see that they owe it as karmic debt to help you through once they cross. So say, like Christina said, your grandmother didn't figure it out. She didn't conquer it, right? Or you had a grandfather or a father who was abusive and, maybe drank too much and sort of there were abandonment issues or whatever. He didn't get the upper hand on it. Whatever it is, these people will, if they cross into the light, they live by the law of the light, that universal order. And we are talking about karmic debt and retribution. They will oversee areas of your life where you suffer from those consequences down through many generations of the family bloodline. So when we talk about your ancestors, we're not just talking here about this sort of airy-fairy idea, of them kind of watching over and supporting you and, cheering you on and giving you things and working everything out in your favor. It's about those tough lessons also. And those people that you maybe don't want to deal with or who are considered abusive or whatever, they have an opportunity. We all have an opportunity to go high instead of low. And that is indefinitely. So after they pass, if you have loved ones coming through and you say, I don't want to hear from them. And Paul and I both saw this week in our readings with different clients who said, well, I don't want to hear from that person. It's not necessarily about whether you want to. They are there to correct and help you through processes that have been holding you back. So be open to tapping in with your ancestors, especially in these key areas, because it does really most of the time look like it's generational. So much. And
the ancestors, they're still part of you, like the DNA. It's, it's all intertwined. So only you can change that DNA. You have to change it so that the pattern going forward is different.
Right. And Danny and I have a free mini class coming up too on what did we title that?
Healing for the minority and marginalized.
Healing for minorities and the marginalized. We have this coming up in a few weeks where I want to focus more on that also, when you have certain societal abuses that have gone on, or colonization and these types of things, and how that also really plays out through your bloodline and generations. So there's so much to talk about on this. I do want, if you guys don't have any last remarks on any of this, I want to get into the prayers and healing.
I'm just very much looking forward to the series that you're going to have on shadow work. It's something I'm realizing that's going to be a lifelong commitment, and there is no mountaintop of consciousness. I've made it. It's not going to happen. I'm realizing that. So I'll be taking copious notes during both of your sessions, and I'm excited about it. I'm really looking.
Yeah, I've been channeling so much on shadow work. I think that it's just really time. I think this is a year where we just have to deal with our stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Yeah, it's a long journey. It's a lifelong journey. I always laugh when people say, "Well, I killed my ego. I killed it, and it went down the shower drain, and I got over it." My ego. It's like, oh boy, we got a lot to.
It's a bigger ego right there.
Yeah, now you have more problems than you did a minute ago. We gotta. Yeah, this isn't. So you don't reach the top of that mountain. It's constant awareness. That's the human experience, but we definitely need to understand there's power in that. There are lessons and growth in that. Did you have anything else to add? Okay, are we ready to start in on this then? Okay, so again, if you guys haven't already done so, feel free to leave a donation for the church. We certainly appreciate it. We're about to get into your healing requests and your prayer requests. I did also want to announce we've started doing a midweek. I found that people are, stressed for obvious reasons with the pandemic and whatnot beyond, what we have normally been. So we have been doing a midweek healing and prayer time. This week we'll be doing it Thursday. That's going to be the 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern. TikTok live, Instagram live, Facebook, YouTube. It's like 10 to 20 minutes. We'll be posting throughout the week. So if you can't make it and join us, you can just post your prayer request there as well. But keep in mind that we are here. We also have a 7-day-a-week call center, Ivy's Healing Call Center, always running. Should you need some kind of additional spiritual guidance. So let's move. Let's move this over. If you could, because I don't have my glasses on. So this is going to be colorful.
Okay, I'll get the camera too, so don't pull too hot.
Okay, so these right here?
Correct.
All right, very good. So let's all just close our eyes and call on Spirit here. Holy Spirit, we thank you for being with us, and we ask that you hear our prayer and healing requests. We ask that you also give the strength and encouragement, help people with their own courage, self-confidence, awareness of their thought processes, awareness of the help that is readily available to them, and to help them stay the steady course in coming from a place of faith instead of fear and worry, to manifest what it is in their lives they want to see done as we go forward. We are lifting up a prayer from Stephanie, healing for her 2-year-old Aiden, who just got diagnosed with leukemia. Claiming that healing for Aiden. Spirit, we ask that you give him the strength that he needs, the endurance that he needs. We ask that you bless the doctors, the nurses, the aides, the specialists, and his little body to be able to receive the medications and treatments that he needs without the negative side effects. And help his mother and the rest of the family to stay positive and bring the healing energy to him that they can, but also receive the healing that they need for themselves during this time. I'm claiming that. Prayer lifted up for the metaphysical. Pray for those who are suffering. Claiming that prayer for anyone suffering. I want to also pray over those that are lost and turning toward negative thinking and relationships instead of independently thinking for themselves or standing on their own. Prayers for those suffering also from financial loss, fear over the pandemic, the loss of loved ones, and those in pain from medical conditions. Lifting up a prayer from Anne Marie, prayers for her friend Dan that is in the hospital on a ventilator from pneumonia, and healing because she's struggling with the loss of her father as well. Lifting up Anne Marie. Claiming that healing for Dan. Again, wisdom to the doctors, nurses, all staff. Give him that burst of healing energy that he needs to come off that ventilator, be free of blood clots, regain his strength, and have a full recovery. We ask also that she's able to connect with her dad's spirit from the other side and that they can build more communication. Claiming that for her. Lifting up a prayer from Evangeline, prayer for strength to let go of control and the fear of not being or doing enough. Amen. Okay, lifting that up for Evangeline, claiming that. I'm praying too that Evangeline sees her purpose and value in what she is right now. No high demands, no jumping for that apple. She is perfect in the way that she is. She is loved, and she is worthy of love, self-care, and prosperity, exactly the way she is now. Help release that weight, that burden from her. Take those bricks off her shoulders, that burden of having to compete with herself, with the world, and always do more. Know that that's part of a toxic cycle that's been put into her mind. Help her to identify it and stop it in its tracks. Okay, claiming that for her. Lifting up Andrea, prayers for her family to find employment, still looking after 6 months due to COVID. Claiming that for Andrea. I also ask that they learn and grow through this process, that they learn more about blind faith, manifestation, law of attraction, and understand that our needs can be supported in many ways when we're open to it, when we claim it, we can receive it. But asking that soon they can also have that consistent support of a reliable paycheck. Lifting up the silly rabbit, prayers for my health and having the energy and endurance to see all of my goals through and trust my intuition. Claiming that for her. Okay, asking that she have the confidence to trust in herself and the self-control to stop the negative questioning patterns of disbelief. Okay, claiming that for her. We are also lifting up DM Richard, prayer for dropping fear in grief and trauma. Claiming that for him. We ask that that fear, that trauma, that grief be washed away. We ask that where it's meant to stay, he understands that it is for his own growth and he utilizes it, using alchemy to convert the negative into positive, into lessons. Let these things strengthen him and help him to learn how to give his wisdom out to others. Okay, so I also want to claim healings for those that are struggling with slip discs or neck and head injury, back injury. Anyone dealing also with carpal tunnel, stress, grinding of the teeth, cataracts, vision loss, blood sugar or blood pressure, meaning like dizziness, confusion. For those struggling in relationships that are toxic or abusive, that this week we find the strength to get out and stand on our own 2 feet. For those struggling with infertility or loss of a child, a pregnancy. For those struggling in watching over their children, feeling that they're failing, especially through these difficult times, for the strength and endurance to know that that's not true, and for everyone to be given the tools that they need to move forward in the right direction through these things, but also the willingness to receive them. Does anyone have to add anything else to this list?
I'd like to add, for anyone who might be fearful of going to their doctor's appointments, who out of fear of contracting COVID or just out of fear of getting sick, that they might delay or prolong some vital doctor's appointments, pray that that spirit of fear be washed away, and that they are met and greeted at any doctor's office that they might go to with the utmost safety precautions and with as much sanitary precaution as possible, because we want to make sure God gave us our higher power, gave us physicians and doctors and healthcare professionals for a reason, and we can't let anybody's health deteriorate during this time as a result of fear.
Amen. Claiming that. I also just want to add two more quick things. I want to pray over those emigrating from Mexico, the caravans that are going on right now currently, the stress of those families, the stress to the children, the fear. Okay, we pray that they're protected, that they receive what it is that they need. And I do want to pray also over the pandemic, that we have some breakthroughs this week on the process of receiving the vaccinations, that the financial support goes to where it needs to be, and that people start taking more responsibility for their activities. All right, I think we are done. So we are going to just invite you guys to check out again the midweek healing and prayer service, should you need it, Thursday, the 4th at 9 p.m. This will be posted tonight or tomorrow up anywhere you receive podcasts, as well as my YouTube channel here at Ask Ivy. And we will see you guys back here next Sunday at 8 p.m. for the second part of this series. Faith versus emotion will be next week. Thank you, Danny, Christina, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spirit. See everyone next week.